Well, hey all, Lance with Rigging Lab Academy. I'm here with a good friend of mine over the last number of years, Tom Wood, VRS, Vertical Rescue Solutions. He is their training manager, and we're going to spend a little bit of time getting to know him. We're going to be talking on a two-part series here, one about VRS, who they are, what they're doing, his involvement there, where the industry's going, and then something special on the second go-around. We'll fill you in on that one later. So, Tom, thanks for hanging out with me for a while. We got an awesome day. So,
thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So, first question, your story. How'd you get here?
Well, I took I-95 south and came down from...
Bypassed the detour, got onto WA, got over here.
Yeah, how I got here. Well,
you've been around a while. Most people don't know that.
Yeah, I've been doing search and rescue work for about 18 years now. I'm back in Colorado for the Alpine Rescue Team, and that's kind of what got me started into the whole rescue and rigging side of things. So I was fortunate enough to work on a mountain rescue team that had Louis McCurley on it, who is now PMI's CEO. And about 8 or 9 years ago, her and the PMI's founder, Steve Hudson, started to kind of concoct a plan where PMI could have a training division. So they wanted to make sure that it was something that wouldn't compete with our pro trainers and our other dealers that do training. And so they settled on the concept for what would eventually become Vertical Rescue Solutions. And so at the time I was working in construction, doing work at height through commercial roofing and general contracting, and I'd been a safety manager for a couple of the companies that I worked for. So Louis approached me about possibly looking at a career shift at that point. Considering the state of the housing industry at that point, it was actually very fortuitous and worked out very well. I kind of jumped right off of that ship as it sank, and then jumped onto one that's been afloat ever since. So, so yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I'm at today here in a very short paragraph there.
So I'd love to jump in a little bit deeper on that. I know that you were involved in search and rescue prior to VRS, and you currently are as well now. So can you delve a little bit deeper into how would I say, you sort of live a dual life. You got a rescuer, you got a family, and you've got this amazing organization, VRS, which, tell me a little bit about VRS's relationship with PMI.
Yeah.
But also, how do you deal with the juggling? You've got three incredibly large pieces of the pie, and from my perspective, that's just got to be incredibly hard.
Well, you have to, have a little bit of ADD. You have to be able to multitask, and you have to be comfortable with kind of all aspects of your life. So, in terms of the Vertical Rescue Solutions part, Vertical Rescue Solutions is PMI. They're one and the same. Vertical Rescue Solutions is the training division of PMI. So our focus with VRS is strictly on training and education, and some R&D for PMI as well. So that is who we are. We are PMI, always have been, always will be. But our passion and our focus is on training and education and saving lives through those two avenues. So in terms of, it's kind of funny that you mentioned, how does VRS relate to PMI? Because how I relate VRS and PMI is also how I relate my non-paid job. I won't say I'm a volunteer. It's too intricate of a job for that, but as a non-paid mountain rescuer, I took my cue from PMI's founder, Steve Hudson, who, from the moment that I met him, it became very clear to me that this is a guy who had figured it out. He'd nailed it. He didn't compartmentalize his work, his family, his career or passion for rescue or his teaching, it was all the same to him. There was no line in between any one of those parts of his life. All of those things were his life. And he seemed to be pretty content with that. And so I took that as kind of a cue that maybe that would be something that might work for me. Because at that time, my commitments in search and rescue were growing. Our team was getting busier and busier and busier, and my responsibilities were growing and growing and growing. On top of that, my family was growing. So, you know, when I began search and rescue, I don't even think I had a girlfriend. I had a truck, and I had a dog, and I didn't even have a house. But a lot has changed since then, and we've got 3 great kids and a great wife. And if you ask how I make all that work, it's because of them, because they've given me their blessing in terms of allowing me to devote so much of my life to so many other things, kind of with the understanding that they don't like to separate all of that out either. They look at what I do, it's all one thing. It's not my job to do search and rescue. It's not my job to teach people for VRS. It's just my life. That's just what I do. And, you know, it's, hopefully it doesn't alienate me from them as they become older and need to get therapy or something like that. But you have to have the support of the people that you love, and if you don't have that, you won't do it for very long. So I just had the good fortune of having a wife and kids that get it and allow me to get it as well.
So tell me about the bridge between, you get this right, so you got the Alpine rescue team, you got Rocky Mountain. I think you've mentioned in one of our other conversations, one of your other guys on VRS is with Rocky Mountain, but
yes.
The majority of y'all are with Alpine. How does a company do that? That's interesting.
That's the main reason why I work for Pigeon Mountain Industries, and that's what PMI stands for, by the way, Pigeon Mountain Industries.
And what is that?
So Pigeon Mountain, when PMI was founded by Steve Hudson and a few other like-minded cavers, they wanted to make a caving rope that just really wasn't much available at the time back in 1976. So they bought a braider and started making ropes for caving because Pigeon Mountain is the home of the deepest continuous pit in North America. I believe there's two drops. One is, I want to say 586 feet. The other is 200 and something feet. So very close to a total drop of 1,000 foot, and that's literally at the doorstep of PMI, Pigeon Mountain. Wow. So that's where this all began, and the reason why I'm able to do what I do, all the things that I do, is because, again, the vision of PMI's founder, Steve Hudson, was that if you're going to sell gear to folks, you should know what they want, and the only way you can know what they want is to do it. And Steve was an avid caver almost his entire life. He forwarded a lot of new territory in terms of caving and cave techniques, and especially cave rescue techniques, with the founding of the National Commission for Cave Rescue. So PMI has 2 offices. Our main manufacturing facility in Lafayette, Georgia, is where all the, what we like to say, the real work gets done, where they make everything, the ropes and the gear. And then our office in Denver, where we do sales, marketing, training, and technical. And Steve, it's written into our employee handbook that we're encouraged to do volunteer service with volunteer search and rescue or volunteer EMS, and that we're allowed to do that, obviously within reason. So in Georgia, in the office, most of the folks there are on the Walker County Cave and Cliff Rescue Team. At least most of the folks that are involved in that, and there's probably 8 to 10. And then in our office in Denver, the majority of us are on Alpine Rescue Team. And then we do have one member of the VRS team, Brian Connell, who's also in the process of becoming a member of Rocky Mountain Rescue. He's not supposed to talk about that, but because he's not officially accepted yet. So,
okay.
So he's working on it. But he'll make it. He'll make it. He's a good guy. So yeah, we're users. All of us that, especially in vertical rescue solutions, in PMI in general, we're climbers, we're cavers. We're rescuers. We do this stuff. We use this stuff. And I don't know if there's any better feeling knowing that the things that you made, you can go out there right now and trust your life to it and be, at ease with that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's, to me, is a great selling tool. And it makes it a lot easier to do your non-paid rescue work, knowing that you can trust the stuff that you've made.
I know that we're doing this interview and podcast through Rigging Lab Academy, but most people, I don't know, maybe they don't know, but most people know that I also own rescue response gear, and for the last 20 years, a lot of times you'll end up calling customer service, and often they're great people, but maybe they don't exactly know the finer details of whatever piece of equipment they're talking about. That is not the case with you guys. I mean, whether it was Lori or whoever, somebody's out there making drops, going out in the mountains doing something.
Well, everybody likes it when they call PMI customer service. They're going to hear a Southern accent, and I've heard so many people say that's just, for some reason, they just love that. It means a lot to them, and they feel like they're being treated like a human being, and it's not just somebody in a foreign country that's part of a service.
That's right.
Taking
icing on
the
cake. So, jumping back a little bit into the duplistic life, so to speak, between going out on a call. I mean, I was on our county team here for almost 10 years, and it is hard. I mean, you got to drop your business, and if one of the things I never really wanted to hear is, this is an overnighter, and you're not going to be back until such and such time. If you get back at all, even close to that, when you're a solo guy, or maybe you had one or two people in the office, it's hard. When you guys go out on calls, they're extended trips, and half your team is gone. I know that that's what Steve wanted, and I know that the company process encourages that. But when you're out there, I know that the game's on, you're doing your thing, and everything else is behind that. But when you come back into the office, and this is an ongoing, you might do 1 or 2 or 3 of these a week, or 4 or 5 of them a month. How do you do that? How does that work on the inside? Because I know that there's a lot of people who would like to get involved, but they can't do that because of something or another.
Right.
Maybe you can.
Yeah, and we can't. I mean, anytime we're called out, we can't just, all of us just like drop everything and run out, which that would be great. But if I'm in the middle of teaching a class, I'm not going to just drop everything and say, sorry, students, you're on your own. Don't kill each other. So there's times when we can't go. That's for sure. But one of the things that all of us working together, both at PMI and then outside of PMI, is that it strengthens a lot of our interpersonal relationships, and it makes working together a lot easier. These are the people that we don't just punch the clock, in and out, and then see you, Fred, tomorrow. It's not that kind of an environment. Most of the time when we leave work, we still go see each other somewhere else, either for trainings or for rescues or any of that. And not that all of us are on search and rescue or K-rescue teams, but a fair number of us are, and it definitely plays into the dynamic of the workplace. And the nice thing is we come back when things maybe didn't go the way that we thought. We can come back and talk about that, and if it's something related to gear or our gear, then we can take what we found that worked or didn't work and then apply that to our products. And that happens fairly often, where you go out there and you think something in theory is going to be a great, wonderful product or device or technique, and in practice it just doesn't play out that way.
Yeah.
So we get that instant feedback loop by doing these things, or doing a climb, and then nicking your rope with your ice axe and going, oh, that unicorn, I was really glad that was there, because we still had 4 pitches to finish with a nicked rope.
Yeah.
And I felt like I could do that. So that's important things to take home and then to take back to R&D and then to put into production. You know, it's a good way to do business, I think, for a company that makes life safety stuff. So pretty happy with that whole way that works out.
So let me jump on that idea. So, you know, prior to sitting down with the camera here, you and I have spent the last hour or two just kind of talking about things, catching up on things. We talked about VRS and its impact on the industry, not just from the North American standpoint, but from a global, because you guys have communities all over the world. You also used the word continuity when we were talking about training and you know, growth issues and things like that. So kind of a tandem question, VRS's impact, how do you see VRS's impact within the global community of riggers? And talk a little bit about the continuity that ranks so high in terms of how you view things.
Yeah. Our discussion, we were talking about kind of continuity versus growth, and where we felt from the very beginning that if you don't have continuity within your coursework, within what you're teaching, growth kind of happens erratically. It's almost a spastic process. Whereas if you lay down a plan for continuity within your coursework and stick to it, then the growth happens on its own, and it will happen at a measurable, manageable pace. And that's been our goal all along. We really don't have any interest in training hundreds of people. We don't have interest in becoming, you know, this giant organization that takes over the training world. We want to be respected for what we do and be a resource for people. And so that's why our curriculum that we're trying to teach, it's something that we all agree on, and each instructor may have their own flavor of how they like to present the material, but the material is still the same regardless of which instructor is presenting it. So that was something that was very important to us, because we've all been to, you know, we're students as well. We go to classes and courses, and you know, it's very interesting. You can go to the same organization 3 different times, and if 3 different people are teaching, you're going to get 3 completely different courses. So we didn't want to be that kind of a training company, so we focused on providing stuff that was still up to date and relevant, but not at the whim of whoever was teaching the class that day. And so what that's done as far as the global community for us is people look at us as a resource for information, for networking, for contacts, for advice on not just our gear, but other manufacturers' gear. That for us has been a great relationship, because we've had people that for years, they took one class from us, you know, 8 years ago, and we still hear from them on a regular basis, because they have a question about this standard or that standard, or, you know, what does this piece of gear do that I didn't know about before. And so we have a good relationship with our students, and what we've tried really hard to do is establish a kind of community where we allow people the freedom to contact us, to pick our brains, to stop by and say hi, you know, any of that, to kind of an informal environment where people don't feel intimidated by our instructors, by our curriculum, by us as a whole. So we try really hard to have a very open door policy in terms of information sharing, and you know, because I will say flat out, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to a handful of individuals when we got started that took information that they had spent their entire careers amassing and freely shared it with us. Folks like on the industrial rope access side, a gentleman by the name of Scott Mahone. On the fire rescue rigging side of things, of course, Pat Rhodes was very instrumental in getting some of our courses off the ground. And Steve Hudson himself, of course, who'd written, you know, a handful of books on rescue-related topics and cave rescue-related topics. So we were very fortunate to have some wonderful folks support us right off the bat. And it kind of gave us a little bit of a leg up that we wouldn't have had otherwise if we tried to blunder through all this on our own.
I remember when, mentioning Piatt. I don't know. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago. And when he came through and we started putting together our elements of rigging and horizontal rigging and a few other courses, and we did some invitational pieces as well as open enrollment, it was like, I don't know if most people don't know that Piatt is a trained musician.
Yes.
And where musicians thrive is that whole analytical / creative learning process. And he's primarily percussionist, but he went through the whole thing, and his treatment of rigging is every bit as artful and musical as the thing that he does. And when he was setting up the tear adapter and using all these configurations, it was kind of funny. You were laughing at or you were talking about a story about somebody with camera issues and not pushing buttons or whatever. I was that person as well. Listening to him, I'm forgetting, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to be recording this stuff. You just get carried away by what he's talking about.
Right.
And it was at that point that I really started to get a lot more hungry for not just more information, but really understanding the stuff that's going on. So I really love your guys' approach to your philosophy of rigging and rescue, and just bringing all your personhood, all your identity, your characteristics of who you are. And like you said earlier, you don't separate it. It's who and what you do, and it's both. So for those of you who don't necessarily know a little bit about PMI and VRS, expand just a little bit on the industry itself. What areas do you cover, and where do you think some of this is going?
Yeah. So the majority of the courses that we teach are either industry related or fire rescue related. And in terms of on the industrial side, we focus quite a bit on industrial rope access. PMI was one of the founders of the Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians, SPRAT, as we all know it, not SPLAT, it's SPRAT. So PMI has been instrumental in the creation of that, and especially Steve Hudson and Louis McCurley and Jim Frank from CMC as well. All big players that started that. So that's probably the main course that we teach is industrial rope access, but that's closely followed by tower climbing, rescue, and climbing classes, both for telecommunications and broadcast. So of course, all of our 4G, 5G, 8G, whatever phones we got, that's the result of a very small group of tower climbers, basically keeping that entire communications line alive. Less than probably 10,000 folks maintaining communications for billions of people. So that's been a passion of ours for quite a number of years now. We're heavily involved in the writing of the regulations and standards for that. And then on the fire rescue side, obviously since we are all rescuers, it's hard not to bring a lot of that into play. So portable high directionals with the tear adapter, and this is one of the big classes we teach. And of course, tower rescue for professional rescuers, since that's now addressed in NFPA 1670. Tower rescue specifically, so that's been a focus of ours for a number of years. And then also one of the newer ones is rope access for the professional rescuer, because ironically, one of the greatest things about rope access is that it gets you places where you can't normally get with other means. But what unfortunately that also entails is when something goes wrong, if you don't know how to rescue someone by doing rope access, you're not going to rescue them.
Right.
So that's something that we were fortunate enough years ago to have the vision of Louis and Steve to sort that out for us. So that's another one of the courses that we have to offer. Those are the main ones.
So, last question. Rumor has it you have a book coming out.
Yeah,
and is more than just coming out, it's here.
It's here, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's, the name of the book is called Trading Steel for Stone.
I think I have a copy.
Shameless plug. There you go. My publisher will be very happy about that. Trading Steel for Stone, Tales of a Rust Belt Refugee turned Rocky Mountain Rescuer. So, yeah, it's been a labor of love. Been working on it for a number of years, and finally found a great publisher out of Boulder, Colorado, to pick it up and run with it. So it's been, in my mind, fairly successful so far. It's you know, Amazon has 8 million or so books that they have available, and I've been lucky enough in the first couple months to crack the top 50.
Bingo.
For mountaineering books a couple times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, pretty happy with the way it's all turned out. It's been a great process.
So for those of you who are going to be around for our second part of this interview podcast, we'll be talking about Tom, his life, what brought him to where he's at today, and talking about the book itself, and some introspectiveness as to the book's content and where things are going and where things have been.